Hi, it's Larold. This is the simplest farm strategy that I've come up with in PoE, and it is a personal favorite for that exact reason. It's also fairly versatile. You can turn this into a gold farming strategy, for example, with just some minor tweaks. So what I'm doing here is I am farming tier 17 maps and corrupted 8 mod maps, and also just kind of random crap. Now there's a ton of wiggle room with this strategy, like I said, and that's why I like it so much, but what I'm really trying to do here is kind of keep the budget low and keep these relatively easy. We're doing tier 16s, not tier 17s, but these are going to be a little more challenging relative to like just generic tier 16s, more risky, if you will. And this has worked extremely well. I'm over 15 divines per hour in this little sample test that I did of 30 maps. Now, there are other ways to farm corrupted 8 mod maps, such as by actually running tier 17s. That does increase the cost and the difficulty. It has worked really well. I've done it at some points in the league, but you need a lot stronger build, obviously. And with the price of tier 17 maps, as divine prices have gone down, there's been a real shock in the market to divine prices in the last week. They've gone from 160. I think they were at 200 chaos at some point, but then they dropped down to like 160 and then 150. Now they're down to about 105 chaos apiece. But tier 17 maps have held relatively stable relative to divine orb prices. They're still about 80% of a divine orb each. So that's a lot of currency to get pretty consistently. So it just makes more sense to me to farm up tier 17 maps to sell. It's selling shovels in a gold rush, that sort of philosophy. So let's get into it, but first be sure to like and subscribe if you like this video, you find it helpful, and you want to see more like it. So about the strat, this is a classic tier 16 setup. It is pretty much the same generic min-maxing Atlas strategy that I've been running for optimizing for as just kind of the maximum amount of quantity and rarity and map mod effect that I can get, and then just kind of doing a lot like the ambush farming strategy. It's a setup that I like to just lock in on my Atlas passive tree and basically never change it at any point. And this is kind of something that's been born out of, I think, maybe like five to 8 leagues ago. GGG started this philosophy of kind of nerfing a lot of the generic drops that come from league mechanics. And that made it so that not running any specific league mechanic actually became a lot more competitive. In the past, it was really bad to not do at least one specific league mechanic, and that's not really the case anymore. And that's kind of what we're doing. So once again, we are boss rushing in order to get good Eldritch Altar mods throughout the map. I have finally gotten my build to the point where I'm comfortable doing all of the blue player mods on altars. So I am doing blue altars now. That has helped a lot. It definitely increased the amount of maps that I have gotten. The amount of just generic quant and rarity from blue altars is significantly higher. Now, with that being said, with the price of divines going down relative to chaos, running red altars and taking chaos as an option from red altars is actually very good now. So that might be better in terms of currency per hour, but there's a lot more clicking that goes into that as opposed to basically getting a tier 17 map every other map of farming. And I'd rather kind of click less and maybe make half a divine less per hour than click like 100 times more per map. So I am doing this on dunes. You can do this on Mesa. You can technically run this strategy on any map, but I would prefer not to. I would say that dunes, Mesa, and Toxic Sewer really are the big trifecta. Underground Sea is also all right, but because dunes, Mesa, Toxic Sewer, and I guess Underground Sea drop the highest quality tier 17 maps, I think that those are the best maps. And then I think Dunes and Mesa are just way easier to boss rush than Toxic Sewer or Underground Sea, so that's why I prefer those two. Now, as with pretty much all currency farming strategies I am running corrupted 8 mod maps. This is the farm strategy I use to get them all. And in this case, I think it's really preferable to chisel out and voling maps. And now it's not mandatory. It's just a good idea. And running this strategy, like I said, is a great way to get a massive supply of them, like just to kind of show off some of my tabs here. I haven't really been doing this strat. I still have a bunch of them that I haven't filed away yet, but like this is just kind of some of my leftovers from having not done this strategy in a little bit. I have a lot of corrupted 8 mod maps around because I like doing this strategy so much. I think if you don't have any corrupted 8 mod maps available, this is a great strategy to start with. You could start by Chisel, Alk, and Voling to get the ball rolling, just run some maps like that, and then switch over to running 8-mod maps once you have self-farmed up. I mean, literally just one that you're able to run, just start doing that, and you should be very easily able to self-sustain once you've gotten to that point. Now, I will say this is definitely a strategy you need to have all 4 of your Void Stones unlocked before you even begin with this. Really, any sort of in-game strategy I wouldn't start doing until I have gotten all 4 Void Stones unlocked. In terms of what we're farming here, just like with Strongbox farming, we want tier 17 maps, we want raw currency, Scarabs, and divination cards, and then we also want 8-mod maps, corrupted 8-mod maps, like I said, and that's pretty much it, but it's very profitable despite the relatively low cost of entry. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the Atlas passive tree, and like I said, this is a pretty generic quant and rarity maxing tree. We're taking both of the quant wheels in the middle, the quant and rarity wheels in the middle. You can take whichever set you want to come through to get to this middle set. I don't really care about there being essences or harbingers. I just feel like I can walk past an essence and not bother to do it, and I can't really justify doing that with a harbinger, and so, you know, that is ultimately why I go through that way. But I like domination. I like the shrines, and so I take all the nodes for shrines. I also do use that in the map device. It's cheap. It adds a lot of packs of guys. And with Drawn to Power, you have at least 1 magic pack per domination shrine, and we're getting a lot of those in the maps. They also help you clear faster, but really, I mean, the big deal for me is we are clearing faster. We are getting a pretty decent number of covetous shrines, which is great. That adds quant and rarity, and with this strategy, with the way we have it set up, we are getting over 250% quantity in maps, kind of baseline very commonly. We can get upwards of 300 quantity in maps, and then having some quant and rarity from the Covetous Shrine, having a bit of rarity on my character just from running a gold flask. I am not using an item rarity support gem, although I would recommend doing so, but it's just not mandatory. I just would recommend doing it. I just didn't do it in this one because I kind of wanted a somewhere in the middle of like a realistic indication on like what drops would be like. You know, 100% rarity, 100-something% rarity I think is good. Pushing that up into the 200% range would be great. It would definitely be more profitable. I just, you know, didn't want to kind of skew results or anything. And then obviously we're going to take every single one of the map drop nodes, and the reason that we take these higher tier chance for maps to be found a tier higher is because of a system called map equity. So if you have all the Void Stones, obviously all the maps will drop at tier 16. I realize some of this might be remedial for some people, but, you know, hey, some people don't know, so I'd rather than have them not know, I'd just go ahead and answer the question now. The map equity system makes it so that when a map would drop that is in that, like, tier 1 through 15 range that can't drop, it instead stores a hidden value for you, and the value triples based on map tier. So, like, if a tier 1 map is worth 1 point of equity, it'll be worth 3 equity for tier 2, and then 9 equity for tier 3, and so on. So by pushing this up, by taking every single one of these chance to become 1 tier higher drop nodes in the tree, we're talking Shaping the Mountains, Skies, and World, we increase that amount of map equity that we get, and that has a pretty substantial increase on the amount of maps that we get while farming maps. Like, it is quite noticeable how many more maps you get if you run this versus if you don't. And then other than that, we're just kind of taking a bunch of Scarab nodes, just generic Scarab nodes. We're taking some Eater of Worlds stuff. Now, if you don't want to do Eater of Worlds, if you want to do red altars, that also works. You just flip this over, you just mirror it over to the other side, it's fine. Because I am running corrupted 8-mod maps, my maps are not chiseled, so I'm not taking chiseled perfection, but if you are chiseling your maps, you do want to do that. And then I have dropped 1 point out here, and I obviously, like I said, dropped chiseled perfection, and that's just to get these blocker nodes, just to block Breach, Abyss, Expedition, Legion, Ritual, Blight, and Delirium on the maps, and it's not really that I care whether those mechanics appear, but since I'm not using them, I wouldn't run them if they did. It's that the Scarabs that they all drop are relatively low value, and by blocking those Scarabs, you increase the chance of getting all of the other Scarabs that can drop, and then we're putting the 1 point here into Ambush Scarabs, because Ambush Scarabs are really the one that stands out as being super high value. Hypothetically, you could also take Cartography if you wanted, just to kind of help yourself self-sustain here, but then you'd have to give up like another point in maybe Eater of Worlds or something. And also by increasing your chance of getting Carto Scarabs, you do reduce your chance of getting Ambush Scarabs. So I would rather just all in on Ambush Scarabs, since the Ambush Scarabs of Containment are worth like 1.5 divines each. Much rather get those big lotteries than maybe a little bit more steady currency out of Carto Scarabs being a lot more common. So that's the tree. Now let's take a look at the Scarabs, and I'll just go ahead and pop them out here. So what we're running is, as is usual, a Cartography Scarab of Escalation, and then a Cartography Scarab of Corruption. This is really standard for any sort of map farming setup. You know, it's mandatory to run a Corruption Scarab if you're farming corrupted 8-mod maps. You can't get them without it. And then Escalation, if you're running 8-mod maps, you're going to get 80% increased maps found in the area, since you're getting 10% per map mod affecting the area. And then I'm also running 3 Scarabs of Risk, and the options you have here is you can either run Multitude Scarabs, which add packs of monsters that have a much higher chance of dropping maps. I've done a lot of this. It adds a lot of guys. You know, it's 8 to 12 packs of monsters. It is a lot of dudes. I've run 3 of these Scarabs. I have run 2 of these Scarabs and 1 Monstrous Lineage Scarab, and I found these to be really good. The only reason that I'm like not doing that right now is these things are really expensive. They're like 14 or 15 chaos each right now. And with the relative price of Divine having dropped a whole bunch, you know, that's a pretty substantial amount. You're spending, if you were to run 3 of these, you would be spending close to half a Divine on these. And they're pretty good at adding maps to your maps. I mean, they do add a lot of extra guys and a lot of extra map drops and a lot of extra gold and, you know, just random stuff dropping. That's great. But Cartography Scarabs of Risk also do the same thing. They add a massive amount of pack size. They add a massive amount of quantity and rarity, and they also interact very powerfully with this Atlas passive here, mounting modifiers, 2% increased effective explicit mods on your maps per explicit modifier. So we have 8-mod maps, that's 16% increased effective map mods. That's huge. You know, we're taking all of these 2 and 3% points, and they're good. 2, 3% for a single point is really good. So to get 16, that's insane. But then by adding 3 extra map mods, we're now going up to like 11 map mods. So 22% map mod effect is wild. I mean, like I said, this is why we're able to get 250 to 300% quantity on our maps. Like, just zoning in and looking around, we're over 200% quantity every single time. Completely insane. So even though I actually feel like I kind of low rolled in my returns in this run, I didn't get a single raw divine, I didn't get like any sort of jackpot drops at all. In some of the kind of testing and playing around with this prior to doing it, I did, like, in the span of maybe 10 maps, I got like 3 raw divines and multiple divine beauty cards that are also worth like half a divine each. So definitely there's a lot of jackpot potential. I think I maybe, like I said, low rolled in doing this. Now it is a little risky in the literal sense. It is a little scary. You get random extra modifiers. Could be good, could be bad. You definitely do want to be playing a build that can handle that. Or if you're not up to it, then you do want to do something that's maybe a little bit more conservative, like Monstrous Lineage and a couple of Multitude Scarabs. That'll be a little bit safer. It might not be as efficient, but it might wind up potentially high rolling and being more profitable. You might get a lot more maps out of the deal, but the cost will definitely be higher if you're doing Multitude Scarabs. You could do Monstrous Lineage. You could just do some very generic stuff like Scarab of Adversaries if you want to keep things a little cheaper and safer than running risks. But I had wanted to play around with risk for a while, and I have been very pleased at having done so, because I didn't find that the map mods were any problem at all for my build. You know, you throw in as many random map mods as you want, it's fine, and the profits were great. So let's go ahead and kind of take a look at that now, and this is what I came up with. I started watching a movie at the start of this. I started watching Prometheus, and I'm like right at the point. I thought it would be like done once I had, you know, well, I guess before I had finished the strategy, and I'm not even 75% of the way through the movie. I'm not at the climactic conclusion yet. So cool, something to do after I finish, I suppose. But also, I got 20 maps through. I looked at how many tier 17 maps I had gotten. I had 10 tier 17 maps at the end of 20 maps, and I thought, let's try another 10, just kind of see how it goes. And I farmed another 5 in the span of 10 more maps. So it does seem like it's pretty consistently every other map I'm getting a tier 17 map. That's pretty good. I also, just to look at my map dump tab here, these columns are 24 maps or whatever items tall and 24 wide, and I have 9 columns of 24, so that's 216 total maps. And I kind of categorize these as good maps versus bad maps. So just to kind of list off the good maps, I would say Dunes, Toxic Sewer, Jungle Valley, Underground Sea, Glacier, and City Square are all good maps. There are a couple of others. Strand, I think, is a really good map. It's just one that I don't particularly like running because it's just a big long hallway, but people love it because it's a big long hallway. I would say it's probably more better than like Underground Sea, I would say. And then Mesa, I think, is also a really good map that I just haven't farmed up a ton of. A couple of others, Tropical Island, Atoll, Burial Chamber. So when I added it all up, I got, if I look at my Wealthy Exile tab here, I think I got something like 60 something. For the first 20 maps, I was target farming Jungle Valley. I got like 62 of them in the span of 30 maps. So that's, or in the span of 20 maps. So it's around 3 of them per map. And then I ran 10 more maps in which I target farmed Dunes because I was worried about filling up my Jungle Valley tab if I just did all 30 on that. And since I was running Dunes, I kind of wanted to restock those. And again, perfectly, I got 30 Dunes maps in the span of 10 maps. So about 3 of the map that you're target farming, the one that you have all of your 12 faves set to. And then I got, like I said, between these is like 92 maps here. And then I got something like 8 other maps that I would consider good maps. 5 Strands, a couple of Mesas, and an Underground Sea, I think is what it boiled down to. Then I also got a Drox map. I got a Pit of the Chimera. I got a synthesized map. And so I just added those in. I think those added up to be about 45 chaos worth of maps, so not bad. And then, you know, the rest are kind of quote unquote bad maps. Now you can sell these to other people for 5 chaos, just kind of random corrupted 8 mod maps. I generally will just feed them to my mappers in King's March. So, you know, if you wanted to say that these are literally worthless, I think that would be wrong. I think that's grossly undervaluing, but even if you wanted to say that they are, we're still over 12 divines per hour very easily. But I think realistically, these are probably 5 chaos is what they sell in bulk to other people on platforms like TFT. You can also use PoE Exchange or Wealthy Exile. All of these are competitive bulk selling tools, kind of up to you what you choose to use, but all of these can be good options, really just what you think works best for you. I think good maps generally will sell for about 10 chaos a piece if you're selling just kind of random ones. If you're willing to let people use a regex and go through that process for other people, then you can actually sell these for more like 12 to 15 chaos each. So that can be quite a substantial increase in profitability. You know, we're talking about basically just giving yourself another 3.5 divines per hour of farming for free. So you definitely should do that, but you know, it involves talking to people, right? The worst thing in the world, as somebody who likes being on the computer and the internet, you have to actually talk to another human being. Can't think of a worse form of torture, but if the result is that you get another, I don't know, 3 to 5 divines an hour, I guess it's worth it. And so just to kind of hit on the, we'll call it random junk that I got out of this strategy, you know, I did do 30 maps, so I got a normal invitation. Technically 28 maps is where you get your invitation, so I guess I should do a set of 28, but that's kind of a janky number. I got 3 Grand Eldritch Ichors, which is a little annoying considering that I got, I think, 2 different Grand Ichor altars, but I got them right at the end of maps, so had those happen right at the start of maps, this might be like 30 or 40 Ichors in here instead. That would add a couple of divines. Again, kind of bad RNG on my part. No raw divines. Like I said, no jackpot currency drops at all, really. I got 5 fortunate cards, which I feel is a little low, but, you know, it's fine. I got a Katava's Feast, that's like 80 chaos. I got a pretty good ephemeral edge. It's only being, you know, it's evaluated at the lowest quality, so like 15 chaos, but I think this is actually more like 50. And then like a really well-rolled Venter's Gamble for like defensive purposes, but terrible other stats on it, so that's worthless. And, you know, the rest of this is all kind of whatever. Maybe I'll corrupt this Anathema and it'll come out good. Otherwise, not really all that valuable either. And then the only other real, like, whatever, interesting oddity is just this 30% quality shield here. So, you know, nothing particularly fancy at all. I sometimes will get criticism for, like, I don't know, including divine drops in strategies where I'm farming currency or whatever, but not a problem this time. I didn't get any good RNG on my random drops, and still, just from the maps alone, just from the tier 17s and the good corrupted maps drops, I pulled well over 15 divines per hour really easily. These are super fast and easy breezy maps, so just a really fun strategy. Like I said before, this is a strategy that I really love. I locked in this Atlas passive tree early on in the league, and I'm probably not going to make any big changes to it until 3.26. You can run this setup on a lot of different maps. You can modify it heavily. I run this same setup on Toxic Sewer fairly often, and that's also a pretty good map. It's pretty relaxing, very rewarding. One of my favorite farm setups to do for sure. I also will use this exact same Atlas passive tree, but with 4 Divination Scarabs of Plenty and a Monstrous Lineage Scarab to farm gold in Toxic Sewer as well. I can clear like 35 to 40,000 gold per map on average in 2.5 minutes in that map setup, so that's like something in the range of 800,000 to 1 million gold per hour, which is pretty cool. You know, very basic, generically useful strategy for the Atlas passive tree that you can kind of modify what you want to do with your Scarabs, but I think that doing Corrupted 8 mod map farming and then just also tier 17 map farming is a really effective way to make a lot of currency really easily. You know, it's such low effort. All you have to do is go in and kill guys until everything is dead and pick up all the stuff on the ground and leave. There's not any, yeah, it's even simpler than ambush, which is like almost impossible for anything to be simpler than ambush, but it somehow finds a way. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching and good luck with your drops. Bye.